So to get started on this maze challenge, after you've created a new project and renamed the project to your name maze, we have to begin starting to actually build our maze. So in Scratch, what you could actually do is you could paint the maze yourself. But for the sake of time, since we aren't focusing on painting, we're focusing on broadcasting, we are going to just upload an image of a maze and use that in our project. Now, you may be tempted to put your maze template as a stage or a backdrop. But in order for our maze to have code, which it's going to need to have, we need to actually make our maze a sprite. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go over where it says new sprite, and we are going to have to upload a sprite from a file. Now, you don't have a maze file yet, but if you go to Schoology and you go to our class page, in the variables folder, there's a maze folder and there's a maze image right here. I have a maze image that we can all use. I've already tested it out. It works. It's good to go. And it's not super easy, but it's also not too difficult. So you're just going to pull the picture of the maze over and place it on the desktop of your computer. That's going to allow us to upload it later on to Scratch. So we're going to go back to our Scratch tab, click this Upload Sprite from File, go to our desktop, find the maze, and click Open. And boom, the maze appears. Now, the maze is a little bit too big for our stage, so we need to go over and get our shrink tool and click on the maze. I would say one time is sufficient. And now it fits perfectly in our stage. But if you do notice our cat, since our cat's going to be the sprite traveling through the maze, through the walls of the maze, he's too big to fit in the maze. So we also need to shrink the cat a good amount, actually, so he could travel through the maze and actually fit through each little hallway there. So to begin our code, just like any other project that we've created so far in Scratch, we need to add an event. So I'm going to pull over the when the green flag is clicked, and then we want our cat to start in the same spot each time that the green flag is clicked. So basically we're setting up our reset code. So if I grab the cat and I move him to exactly where I want the cat to start, and I drop him there, the coordinates on all of our blocks change. So if I move him to the upper right-hand corner of the screen, if you notice, my X and Y coordinates change. If I move him back to where I want him to start, my X and Y coordinates will change again. So I don't need to worry about trying to find exactly the coordinates where he's going to start. Those are already plugged in to the X and Y positions for me. Now, since this is going to be a game, just like the other games that we've created, we need to add a forever loop, because we want the code that's in the forever loop to play as long as the game is going on. Now, inside this forever loop, we want the program to constantly be checking for when the user is clicking on the arrow keys and have a response that the cat travels through the maze depending on what arrow keys the user clicks. So in order to do that, we need an if-then block. So I'm going to pull that over and stick it in my forever loop. And we're going to go to sensing, pull over the when blank key is pressed, and I'm going to change it. For now, we're going to start with the right arrow key. So if the right arrow key is pressed, then we want our cat to move right. So instead of using a move 10 steps block, because that's a pretty vague block, I'm actually going to use a change X by block. So I'm going to pull that over. And instead of doing 10, I'm going to say we're going to change X by 4. because I don't want the cat to move too much every time that the player hits one of the arrow keys. I want him to move just enough. And from trial and error, changing X by 4 seems to be pretty perfect. So if this type of program, this type of code, script, is exactly what we need to make the right arrow keystroke respond with moving the cat 4 places or 4 steps over, we can do the same thing with the left arrow key. So I'm going to control click on the whole if-then loop, duplicate the code, and stick it right under my first if-then loop. Now I need to change the key that we're going to press from the right arrow key to the left arrow key. And we also have to look at the changing X by value that we've put in our code. So if I press the right arrow key and my sprite moves 4 places to the right, that's in the positive direction. So if I press my left arrow key, I need to change X. I still want to make it 4, but instead of being positive 4, I'm going to make it negative 4, because negative on a coordinate plane is in the left direction. I took care of my right arrow key, my left arrow key. Now I'm just going to go ahead and do the same thing for the up arrow key and the down arrow key. So I'm going to change this one to up, change this one to down. Now I actually have to throw away both of these change X blocks, because if you remember from our discussion about coordinate planes, the up and down direction, the vertical direction, is in the Y direction. So I can't change X. I want to actually change Y. So I'm going to pull over 2 change Y blocks. And since on a coordinate plane, the up direction is positive, I'm going to change Y by 4. And in the down direction, it's negative, so I'm going to change X by negative 4. So now let's try it. So I'm going to press the green flag, and I can move side to side, move all around, navigating the cat through the maze. Now, one of the project requirements is that if the cat touches part of the maze or any of the black lines, that it goes back to the beginning. So we're going to have to tackle that part of the code. But the cat also is moving, but he's just changing position. It doesn't really look like he's moving. He's not walking at all. He's just staying in the same costume, in the same direction each time. So what I actually want to do is I want to create movement. I want to create an animation. I want him to look like he's walking. So just like we did during the animation challenge, we can do the same thing here using the next costume blocks. And we're going to pull one under each motion, blue motion block in each of our if-then statements. And then just to control this a little more so I can actually see him changing costumes, I'm going to add a wait block under each change costume, but I'm only going to wait for 0.1 seconds. Now let's start it. He goes back to the beginning, and now it actually looks like the cat is walking through the maze and not just staying in the same position and not changing costume. So in order to successfully broadcast the messages that are required for us in this project, we need to create a few more sprites that can interact with each other and work together within the program. So we have our cat, we have our maze. I'm going to create just a little finish line, okay? And I'm going to make it an X. So I'm going to go over to New Sprite and click on Paint a New Sprite. And I am going to make an X, make the X red, okay? And my X shows up here. I'm going to rename this the finish, go back, and I'm going to pull my X to the end of the maze. Perfect. That's the finish line. You can really make that anything you want. Then I also need a sprite that's going to pop up if I lose, and a sprite that's going to pop up if I win the game. So I'm going to paint more sprites. Paint a new sprite. I'm going to, you can really do anything you want here. I'm going to make a you win block. Make that white. Pull it over a little bit, make it a little bit bigger. Perfect. So we got that. Rename it winning. And then I'm going to make one more sprite, same way that I just did the other one. This is going to be you lose. Pull that over. Excellent. Just rename it, losing. So it's really important that we're all able to paint our own sprites and make our own sprites. The reason why I made these you win and you lose blocks sprites is because we're going to need to have them have code. And the only thing that could really have code within your program are your sprites. You can have code in your backdrop, okay, but for right now, we're just going to be writing code within our sprites. So we're going to go back to our cat. And if the cat touches the black color, then we want it to go back to the beginning. But we also want our you lose sprite to pop up. So we're going to create that broadcasting message. So we're going to go to events. I'm going to pull up broadcast message and put it, actually I'm going to put it right above my go-to block. I'm going to change that message and just write my custom. So I'm going to say you lose. Click OK. So we have that message broadcast you lose. So I'm going to go to my losing sprite. And when the losing sprite receives you lose, we want that sprite to appear. Maybe we'll say that we want it to appear in the middle of our stage. But at all other times, we want our sprite to be hidden. We want it to be away. So there's multiple ways you can do this, but the simplest way, to be honest, is just pull over when a green flag is clicked. We want that sprite to be hidden until he receives the message that you lost. So we program the you lose, but we still need to program the you win sprite to pop up when the cat reaches the finish X. So I'm going to go back to my cat script and I'm going to add an if then, still in my forever loop, but under the last if then. So if touching color black, we want to add our new if then after that. So if touching color red, okay, you can write the script, or sometimes using the touching color block actually slows down your program and makes it have a few more glitches. We can use if touching finish sprite. So if it's touching the red X, then we're going to program something to happen. So if it's touching the red X, then we are going to broadcast a new message. Instead of you lose, we want to say you win. And then we're going to click on our winning sprite. Just like the losing sprite, we want it to be hidden whenever the game is turned on. We don't want that to appear. But when the winning sprite receives the you win message, we want it to appear, and we'll just say we want it to appear in the middle of the stage. which is 0, 0, just like a coordinate system. So let's try it. I'm going to press stop on my program, start it. Works so good so far. I don't see you win, I don't see you lose. Navigating through the maze. I'm just going to touch a black line. Said you lose popped up, and my cat went back to the beginning. The same thing should happen if I click and I move to the finish X.